Okay, so last turn we were discussing about some fundamental of EM radiation. This is electromagnetic radiation. This is basically uh, for the visible light. And we know that EM radiation is also familiar in other forms such as radio or TV signal and ultraviolet or infrared light. So basically, what follow is valid for the complete range of radiation. Particular attention is given to the infrared, visible, and ultraviolet. So most of the instrument that is based on this kind of uh, electromagnetic radiation that come under infrared, visible, and ultraviolet. Uh, so here we given some comparison graph between you can say the sunlight and the heated tungsten filament, and that normal the human eye that can be uh, that can see or that it is visible. Just like tungsten has a temperature of 2870, so solar light is around this. We have this kind of diagram, this kind of range, wavelength range, and human eye is basically in this visible range. Here we also given a different frequency or wavelength for the different type of uh, region. Just like very low frequency, we have TV, radio, then microwave, infrared, visible, ultraviolet. So mainly we are the instruments we have in this range: ultraviolet, visible, and infrared. Okay, so last time we discussed these aspects. So now the spectroscopy method of composition analysis. So we instrument this called a spectroscopy when we have this in this region. The atom of a substance are excited and thereby their configuration is changed. This is the fundamental of the any spectroscopy. When we uh, when we give energy or in terms of photon or in terms of light rays, so when we give the energy, so what happens? The atoms come in the excited state and their configuration change, and they either can absorb or radiate energy at unique frequency. So line spectra are caused due to the absorption or emission of the discrete wavelength of the radiation by atom. So we observe this spectra, and based on this, we can analysis a particular composition. So we have basically three type of spectroscopy: the absorption spectroscopy, emission spectroscopy, and the fluorescence spectroscopy. In absorption spectroscopy, this is based on the principle of when X-ray radiation or infrared radiation or ultraviolet radiation is passed through a known material, some frequency of the radiations are observed. So when we have basically absorption, so when we pass the radiation through a given sample, there is a absorption, or there is a, you can say, radiation of a particular type of frequency. So that is known as the absorption spectroscopy. In emission spectroscopy, the sample of unknown substance is placed in a flame on a or an arc. So this develop emission of radiation with the characteristics of each substance. So based on the characteristics of the substance, when sample is placed in the flame or an arc, so there will be emission of the frequency or radiation. Emission of radiation, or you can say the frequency, so that we will see, and based on this we can characterize the composition of the substance. Fluorescence spectroscopy, this can be applied to the substance which undergo fluorescence only. So the substance is excited by the absorption of light. We have, this is basically the fluorescence, you can say. When the substance is excited by absorption of light, the excitation of the substance causes emission of the light, which is related to the composition of the substance. So we have basically a three type spectroscopy. So we have next the mass spectroscopy. So mass spectroscopy basically This gives the, you can say, in nutshell, we can say, looking the spectra of the mass of a particular, each, you can say that each standard or pure substance has a particular mass pattern. Just like we have in a light, we have basically spectra of a radiation pattern. Similarly, each pure substance has a mass spectra of a pure substance. So we will compare with that, and based on this, we can say we have this kind of component. The sample of the substance, vapor or gas, whose composition is to be determined, is bombarded with an electron beam in a evacuated chamber. So basically, we keep the sample, and the electron beam is bombarded on the sample. So the sample will discrete and bombarded, produce ions from the atoms present in the substance, and ions are accelerated into the circular path. The radius of the path depends on the mass of the ions, and the ion beam is formed. So by measuring the strength of the beam, of the composition of the tube substance can be determined. So basically we are baking the particular substance, and which type of ions will form, it will be collected in a, because these are ions, so it will attract a particular, it will follow a particular path, because there are whole mathematical equations also involved in this. So depending upon the weight of the mass of the particular atom, it will follow a particular circular path, because we have the energy, and based on the mass, it will follow a certain path. This is circular path. This is circular path, right? So based on the circular path, it will we can decide what is the composition of a particular mass. So we are collecting in different places. So basically, you can say the spectrometer is basically categorized in three category: wavelength of radiation used, production radiation, method used to separate beams. We have the classification of the spectroscopy like this. Just like wavelength of radiation used means we have infrared, visible, and ultraviolet. We have three class. Production radiation means we have absorption or emission. And method of separate beam, we have refractive and diffractive. Refractive means this is a prism. Prism means it will separate the light. Diffractive means this is grating, right? So we have first, let's say, infrared spectroscopy. So how it works, the wavelength of the infrared radiation which is falling on the thermocouple is determined by the angle of setting of the wavelength mirror. Basically, in all these kind of spectrometer, we have a lens, and we have the combination of lens. I am not going into much detail of the figure or the designing of this, but you can just have an idea that we have the combination of lenses, and when you give the light will pass through all these lenses, and it will focus on the sample, and through the sample, the you can say the radiation will come, and this radiation will again check, or you can say measure by a generally in the form of current or some spectra, so we can analyze a particular substance. So wavelength spectra can be scanned by slow rotating the wavelength mirror. So these are all settings, the infrared arrangement. The prism is to be used to determine the range of the wavelength adopted by the substance under analysis. And the effect of temperature is counted by employing the temperature compensated, which position of the mirror based on the temperature coefficient of the refractive index of the prism. So basically, the prism that is using to separate the light at a particular angle, it will give you the you can say the it will give you the change in the wavelength or corresponding the temperature also. So there is a change in temperature also. The spectroscopy data is recorded automatic balance potentiometer. This is basically in terms of current, and the concentration of the various component of the sample substance can be determined from the amount of absorption at any wavelength by the Beer's law. So infrared spectroscopy, we use Beer's law, right? And what is Beer law? This is given by the A. This is a log of 10 I naught upon I, means I naught means this is the intensity of a standard sample, and I is the which sample we are going to test. So this is given by the A. So this is a Beer law. Generally, this question asks the Beer law is used in a spectroscopy, and this is a ratio of Logarithmic ratio of intensity. This kind of questions we generally have earlier also. So gas is continuously sent through a sample cell. The wavelength of the infrared radiation is so selected that the analysis is sensitive, right? So the amount of radiation received by each bolometer depend on the concentration of the absorption gas. So bolometer is basically, this is a device. This measures the power of the incident electromagnetic radiation by a heating or of a material with a temperature dependent electrical resistance. So it will just measure the how much light it is coming. So based on this, how much power is generated by the electromagnetic radiation, and this is just because of it says the heating of material. So this is temperature dependent electrical resistance device. So this is known as a bolometer. This is also important term. So just keep this thing. This method is used to widely variety of the gases except hydrogen, nitrogen, and oxygen, because they do not absorb radiation in the infrared region. This type can be employed for the liquid also. So infrared radiation can be used for the hydrogen, nitrogen, this kind of gas, as well as the liquid also, right? So this is very commonly used. Okay. So the next we have the ultraviolet absorption spectroscopy. Ultraviolet absorption spectroscopy. This is basically use all type of analysis and operates in the range of 0.2 to 0.8 micron. This is a wavelength, and the light source is focused by the condensing mirror and by a flat mirror of the entrance slit. So there is basically a diagram. I'm not going to into much detail in the diagram, but you can see that we have some flat mirror in the entrance through which the light will pass, and we have some slit. Slit means this is a narrow arrangement where we are just passing a particular wavelength. The rest will be filter. So from the slit it proceeds to the collimating mirror, then through the quartz prism back to the collimator mirror through exit slit. So this is basically a diagram detail. There's no need to go in much detail. The intensity of the beam is measured from a phototube using the potentiometer instrument. Potentiometer is just to measure the electric current or voltage because of the light. So a particular wavelength passed through the sample cell is determined by the angle setting of the prism. So angle of the parts placed determine which part of the refracted themes falls on the exit split. So that instrument can be used either in complete analysis of the sample by running a complete spectrograph, or a continuous analysis by operating a fixed wavelength critical to the analysis being made. So this is important line. Basically, this is used for the complete analysis of the sample by running a spectrograph, or a continuous analysis. This can be used for the continuous analysis, right? By operating a fixed wavelength critical analysis being made. As source, tungsten lamp is used in the visible region 0.3 to 1 micron, and hydrogen discharge lamp 0.22 to 0.35 micron ultraviolet region. So we can use this kind of heating source. It can be tungsten lamp, or it can be hydrogen discharge lamp, right? So this can be also used as a source of ultraviolet region. We have the X-ray spectroscopy. So now I will go in less detail. Uh, this is employed for the composition analysis of solid, liquid, and gas. So this X-ray is very good technique for the composition analysis. In this two beam, this is basically, you can say, we have the two beam. One is as a reference beam, other one is this beam passes through the sample. So in this two beam X-ray wavelength, 0.4 to 1.5 angstrom are passed as one beam is passed through the sample cell to a fluorescent screen, and another beam is passed through the variable thickness aluminum alternator, and then can be then to a second sample cell of the same fluorescent scheme. So basically, we are passing the two beam. One is through the sample cell, other one is through the aluminum alternator. And what we do, we just using the amplifier, the difference in the intensity of the two beam is measured, and aluminum alternator is basically we adjust until the two beam have the same intensity. So how much we adjust, this can be measured. Thus, the difference in the absorption of two sample is expressed in terms of aluminum thickness, right? So based on this, we know how much aluminum thickness can be used to adjust the two beam have the same intensity. The thickness of the aluminum is calibrated to the content of critical component. So this way we can use the X-ray spectroscopy to find out the composition of solid, liquid, and gases. So all the component, all the states we can use. Then we have a emission spectrometer. So basically this is a two type. One is an arc type, other one is a flame type. As we have mentioned here, we have emission. This is a emission spectroscopy. This is because it produces the production of radiation. So this is arc type or flame type. Arc type means this is used analysis of magnesium, aluminum, and steel, right? So we use the analysis of this. In arc emission, the type of spectrometer spark of an arc is used to producing radiation. Already this is in this category. So emission and the grating are for diffraction of the emitted radiation into the spectra. So basically we produce the arc, right? Spark or of an arc, right? And through this we measure the composition. So how we measure the composition? The intensity of the radiation of a various wavelength in the ultraviolet region, this is basically 800 to 2500 angstrom, is measured by multiplier phototube, operates direct reading instrument. So this way the arc type emission spectroscopy is used. Actually in your syllabus it is not much detail is required. That is only you should at least know the name and which type of analysis we do. So this much also sufficient, because most of the instrument question that comes in an objective form. So that we also do some objective questions based on this, so you can remember all the things very well. But at least you should know the name and some working, so at least it should be some back of your mind, so you can use it. We have a flame type. Flame type means this is used for the analysis of inorganic compound, right? Inorganic compound. So the flame type spectrometer operates by the atomizing an aqueous solution, right? So we atomizing means we just heated the aqueous solution of a particular component, and introducing into the burner a lens system. This will concentrate the emitted light and phototube through the filters, and the output from the phototube is amplified by the amplifier and is indicated by the potentiometer type instruments corresponding to the concentration. So this is very important analysis. This is a flame type for an inorganic compound. Generally we use this type of emission spectrometer. This is widely used in the industry or research work. In a mass spectrometer, as I told you, there's a lot of mathematical equations are required. Here I mentioned some. I found this in other books, so that's why I put it separately. So mass spectrometer employ a principle for a given acceleration force. The acceleration is inversely proportional to the mass. Since the ions of different material have a different weight, so they are accelerated at different rate. The ions followed the curve path when they are sent through the magnetic field. For a constant voltage and constant magnetic field, the radius of the path depend on the mass. So how we get the radius of the path? This is given by this equation, right? This is a mv, this is a mass of the atom, v is the voltage, E is the electromagnetic field, and b is the magnetic field. B correspond to magnetic field. The angular velocity can be also velocity of the charged particle is moving in a magnetic field is depend on the this is the frequency. So frequency can be calculated 1 upon 2 pi EB upon ME. So these are some equations we can use to analyze the spectrometer. So analysis of a spectrum gives the composition of the vapors or a gas sample. The spectrum is compared with the spectrum of pure substance. This is important line. We found the spectrum and that is compared with the pure substance. And as we compare with the pure substance, the mole fraction of the components are calculated by direct proportions. One special use of the mass spectrometry is analyzing isotopes. We can also analyze the isotopes because we have a different mass. So, and small samples are enough for the analysis. So this is very important point also. In a mass spectroscopy, we require very less sample because sometimes samples are also very rare, so we cannot waste it. So small samples are used to analyze the composition. We have it now. Next, we have the fuel gas analysis. The fuel gas analysis basically contains, you can say, the CO2, CO, H2, nitrogen, and hydrocarbons. So what we do, the combustible gas like CO, hydrogen, hydrocarbons, this is a heat of combustion methods are used to determine the presence of combustible gas. By burning the gas at a filament and measuring the temperature rise in the filament. Thermocouple is used to measure the heat of combustion. So we just simple combustion the gas, and that's like a CO, hydrogen, and hydrocarbons, and how much heat of combustion is produced or it is required to combustible the gas. So that can be measured. So that can be measured by just measuring the temperature rise in the filament. So this way we can say the composition of the particular gas. There is one important method. This is known as the hydrogen sulfide method. This method is basically used to, this is a chemical method. This is used to determine the amount of H2S gas in the gas sample. So what we do basically for this analysis, how much H2S is present in the sample. So for that, a paper tape is treated with a lead acetate and is passed to the gas chamber. And we know a light or photocell are arranged to measure the reflectance of the paper before and after the tape passes through the gas chamber. So basically, in a paper tape, we treated this by the lead acetate, and we also made a arrangement of the light or photocell arranged to measure the reflectance of the paper before and after pass through the gas chamber. So if hydrogen sulfide is present in the gas sample, then it react with the lead acetate and form the lead sulfide. So the reflectance of the lead sulfide is different from the lead acetate. So presence of the lead sulfide on a paper reduce the reflectance of light. So depending on the difference of the output photocells, the amount of hydrogen sulfide present in the gas sample is determined. So this is a standard method to determine the hydrogen sulfide. That for that we use lead acetate, right? This is a automatic RSET. This is also very good, important instrument. This is a RSET method. This is basically used to measure the carbon dioxide in a given sample. So basically in this device is operated in a continuous cycle to extract a given volume of the gas which has been washed, clean and temperature controlled. The gas is then passed through a solution of caustic potash, right? Caustic potash which absorb the carbon dioxide. The remaining gas passed through the displacement meter, and the volume of remaining gas is difference between the given volume of the gas and the carbon dioxide present. So basically we pass through caustic potash, and caustic potash we pass through the caustic potash, and caustic potash absorb the CO2, and based on this we can say what there is a difference in volume, and difference in volume is this will we can measure the what is the carbon dioxide present. Oxygen analysis. So this is measured using the paramagnetic method. So I will describe this because later. This is also very important technique to find out the oxygen, and this question has been asked so many times in the GATE. Oxygen analysis is done by the paramagnetic method because this oxygen is a paramagnetic gas. So carbon dioxide already we have discussed. This is measured continuously by the thermal conductivity method, CO2 analyzer, or by the automatic RSET. Now we have some more technique like hot wire and anemometer. Anemometer, this is basically you can say this is used to measure the velocity of a particular gas. So in this a small resistance wire is inserted into the fluid stream, and wire is heated by the electric supply, right? This is very important technique. So the loss of the heat from the wire depend on the mass velocity of the fluid and the specific heat of the fluid. So when the wire is inserted and get heated, so depending upon the velocity of the fluid that will pass through this wire, so the current to the wire is maintained constant, and the resistance of the wire varies with temperature. Is measured by the Wheatstone bridge, and the resistance of the wire is related to the flow rate of the liquid. So this is an important point. So resistance of a wire is related to the flow rate of the liquid, and another way is that the temperature of the wire is kept constant. Changing current to the wire, then the velocity is to be related to the current. So this way, this is very important, very useful technique, this to measure the velocity. This is a hot wire anemometer, just to compare the resistance with the temperature. Colorimetry, basically this is referred to determine the substance from its ability to absorb visible light, right? So that's why this is known as the colorimetry. So visual colorimetry method are based on the comparison of the colored solution of the unknown concentration with one of the colored unknown of the known concentration. So that is basically a comparison between known and unknown samples. So in general term, for the chemical analysis, through measurement of the absorption of the radiation is the absorptiometry. The term colorimetry is applied only in the relation to the visual spectra region, because we can visualize the color. So that's why this is known as the colorimetry. Otherwise, you can say the general term for the chemical analysis through measurement of the absorption of radiation is the absorptiometry. So generally we call this as absorptiometry, but in a visual region this is known as the colorimetry, right? Right, and this is measured. The principle is to just compare the visual from the unknown concentration to the known concentration. Now the important one more important technique, this is known as the photoelectric pyrometer. Pyrometer is basically the instrument that measures very high range of temperature. This is 800 to 1600 degrees centigrade. And the response of the photocell of the radiation is very fast. The response of the photocell is in visible radiation and the near infrared radiation. So this is around 0.4 to 1.2 micron wavelength. So photovoltaic cell given EMF, this is proportion to the amount of radiation falling on it. So basically the EMF production, that will basically, you can say, the amount of radiation falling on it, the photo emission tube produce current proportion to the amount of radiation falling on it. So EMF is produced, and the photoelectric pyrometer use the principle of matching the radiation from standard source with the radiation from target surface. So means we just compare, you can say, here you can say the principle of matching the radiation from standard source with the radiation from target surface. So we just measure this, we compare this. The photoemissive tube generates an electron current which is proportional to the intensity of radiation. And we use in this a lens that concentrates radiation from the object surface whose temperature is to be measured on a photo tube. Response from the measuring cell is amplified through the Wheatstone bridge, and we adjust the current through the standard lamp. And basically the potentiometer is used for the moving object, fast moving object. This technique is used, I'm not going much detail, but this is important point. This is used to measure the temperature of fast moving objects such as the steel rolling mills, open hearth furnace, and welding temperature. This is calculated by comparison of the optical pyrometer. So this way, this photoelectric pyrometer is used for the to measure the high temperature of fast moving object. Okay, this is also very important. The moisture contained in the paper and textile, how we measure this. This principle is that the resistance of the material varies with the moisture content. So means any material resistance vary with the moisture. So this is the basic principle. And based on this, we can say the complete dry material, this is dry, not dry, this is dry. The complete dry material, you can say this is bad conductor of electricity, and their resistance is highly decreased when they are moist. So if the moisture is more, then the resistance will be very less, right? So the means the current will flow easily. So in practice, the electrical conductivity is measured by the means of two electrodes of one from the other depend upon the material to be tested. The specific resistance of conductance of a body depends on dimension and shape of the electrodes, distance between the electrodes, condition of the measurement like temperature, pressure, etc. A method of measuring the paper roll whose resistance is to be measured is sent in between the roller and the shaft. So this which paper is to be measured, the moisture is measured, we just send into the between the roller and the shaft, and the resistance between the roller and the shaft is related to the moisture content of the paper. And this resistance is measured to determine the moisture content of the paper. The electrical circuit consists of Wheatstone bridge. Wheatstone bridge can measure the very small change in the resistance, and these two arms are equal resistance, and two other arms is internal resistance of the double triode. So it is just for the information. So micrometer is connected to across the Wheatstone bridge diagonal. So whatever the small change in the that can be measured through the Wheatstone bridge, and through this we can say the amount of moisture present in the paper. Now this is the oxygen analysis. Oxygen analysis means already I have told you this is a paramagnetic, oxygen is paramagnetic. So it is basically based on some magnetic effect also. So we have this principle. So all the gases are influenced by the magnetic field. So gases which are paramagnetic are attracted towards the strong magnetic field. So oxygen is a strong paramagnetic. This paramagnetic principle is used to determine the percentage of the oxygen in the gas sample. Right? The percentage of oxygen in the gas sample. A measuring cell, we have basically two cells. One is known as the measuring cell, other is known as a reference cell, used to contain the platinum heating wire. This is basically a resistance wire. So a measuring cell is arranged in the field of the paramagnetic permanent magnet. Basically, in a measuring cell, we have the permanent magnet, and we have some heating arrangement also. So what happened? We flow the gas sample into this into this cell, and the bottom of the pile cell and get into sent back aspirator pump or through a blower. So we just make some arrangement, maybe aspirator pump or blower, to just make arrangement to flow in the measuring cell. If the oxygen present in the gas sample that attracted the magnetic field, and the oxygen come into contact with the heated filament. So in a measuring cell, we have a heated filament. So as we blow the oxygen into the measuring cell, and we have there in the magnetic field, so it will be attracted by the magnetic field, and it come into the contact with the heated filament. So as the oxygen gets heated, the filament, it is less attracted by the magnetic field, and the hot oxygen is pushed down into the incoming oxygen. So as this heated, so it will be just, you can say, the breakdown. It will be not the paramagnetic, and it will now push down the back, or you can say it will come out from the measuring cell. So if the more oxygen present in the gas, then there will be more circulating gas in the measuring cell. So there will be circulation of the oxygen because it is just coming out from the measuring cell. So we have more circulation of the oxygen. So you can say when we have a more circulation means, you can say the filament will get cooled down. The measuring cell element is cooled by more circulation, and thereby reducing the filament resistance. The resistance of the filament is proportional to the amount of oxygen in the gas sample. The two samples are connected with Wheatstone based circuit, and we can the operation of the indicator recorder. So this way we can measure the content of the, or you can say percentage of the oxygen in the gas sample. We have another technique. This is known as the polarograph. Polarograph is basically an instrument. This is used to analyzing the substance which undergo electrolyte oxidation or reduction. Right. So analysis of the steel alloy and ores, that is done by this instrument. Analysis of steel alloy and the ores. So in this, basically what we do, we have a solution. We have a solution containing a sample, and in this the mercury is we have, basically you can say the mercury is the top, and we arrange the mercury at the top, and we have the sample of the sample of the solution of the sample at the bottom, and mercury is just allowed to drip into this solution. So mercury is dropped into the solution containing the sample. In the beginning, potential supply starting from 0 volt and then gradually increase by step to 5 volt is given to the electrode. So we have some electrode also. So when mercury is just getting down into the solution, so due to the attraction of the iron of various constituent to the electrodes, the current rise in this steps. So voltage of each step shows the presence of certain element in the sample, and height of the steps current is proportional to the consideration of the elements, and that we plots current versus voltage. This is known as the polarigram. So this method is directly give you the composition or analysis of steel alloys and ores. This is basically used for measuring the iron content in the sample. Thermistor basically you can say this is a non-metallic resistor. Non-metallic resistor. In this, you can say the resistance decreases as the temperature increases. Thermistor is made up of metallic oxide like manganese, cobalt, carbon, iron, copper, iron, nickel, etc. or their salt. So the electrical characteristics of the thermistor are dependent on the type of the oxides or salt used and their physical size and configuration. The variation of resistance with the temperature is high in these, and so small size elements are used. They are useful only up to 300 degrees centigrade to 100 degrees centigrade. And it follow this kind of relation R equal to A e की power B by T. T is the temperature, A and B are constant, R is the resistance. So now here I try to summarize the whole thing, and this is you can say the key point that you can at least for your instrumentation point of view, you should at least know some ranges because most of the question even you see in the gate also, they are basically talk about a particular range. So here I mentioned we have basically 4 variables. You can say temperature, pressure, flow rate, level. So here I just try to summarize all these things. So list of the temperature measuring instruments and their range of operation. So these slides are very important from the gate point of view also. Just like we have a constant volume gas thermometer. So this is basically we have hydrogen gas, nitrogen gas, helium gas. So hydrogen is just used to measure temperature range from 0 to 100, nitrogen above 100, helium below 0. So we have constant volume gas thermometer. Mercury in glass thermometer, it range from minus 30 to 350. Bimetallic thermometer 0 to 400. Vapor pressure thermometer minus 20 to 300. Thermocouples minus 20 to 1600. That's why thermocouples are widely used in the major applications. Resistance thermometer minus 2000 to 650. Radiation pyrometer 800 to 2000. So pyrometers basically used for the high range of temperature. Optical pyrometer that also the same range 800 to 2000. Photoelectric pyrometer 800 to 1800. So this is you can say range of the temperature measuring. Now we have a thermocouples. The commonly used thermocouples and their range are this is also important because most of the time this type of question has been asked in the gate. We measure the 100 to 600. The thermocouples is basically have the combination of copper and constant end. And 0 to 600 we have, instead of copper we have iron. And chromel aluminum, this is a mixture that is used to measure the temperature between 300 to 1100. So this is basically widely used in the industry because it covers most of the temperature range. If we even go for very high temperature range like 1200, 1400 something, then we use the platinum and rhodium thermocouples. Yeah, the thermocouples is the mixture of this and this. So now we have some various pressure measuring device that we have already discussed. Now I summarize the range also. We have the liquid column that is basically used to measure less than 30 psi differential pressure. We have a Bourdon bellows diaphragm gauge 30 to 200, ionization gauge 3 to 0.0004 microns, McLeod gauge, this is 8 to 0.006 microns. This is of two type. One is a large bulb, other one is a small bulb. The small bulb is used to 90 to 20,000 microns. We have a Knudsen gauge, Phillips gauge. This is used to measure 15 to 0.04 microns. Pirani gauge 2 to 4,000 microns. Thermocouple gauge 3 to 700. Alphatron 3 to 4,000, 40,000. Bellows gauge 4,000 to 10^6 microns. So bellows is used to measure the high pressure. So these are few names and their ranges. And similarly, we have the liquid level measuring. Liquid level measuring, we have the, just like we have float and tape method that use 4" to 60 feet, float and soft type, bellows, bubble, diaphragm box. Even I have not discussed the liquid level measuring instruments. Okay, I will try to cover this also. So we have a different type. Now the flow measuring, these are very common. You have already done this thing in a fluid mechanics course, where we have a orifice meter, venturi meter, pitot tube, rotameter. We have a rectangular notches. So that's why I'm not, already you know all these things, so I'm not going to detail. V notches, trapezoid notches. We have a partial flume, that is basically used to measure 1 to 100 million gallon per day for liquid and the sludges. This is also important. We have the velocity meter, propeller meter. So these will, propeller meter you have in your control lab. Velocity meter, propeller meter, cap anemometer. This is also used for the velocity. Deflecting vane meter, hot wire anemometer for the liquid and gases. Tilting tap meter, piston meter, rotary vane meter, seal drum meter, lobed impeller meter, bellows meter, conveying wave for the dry solid materials. So we have all these things to measure the flow rate, velocity of a particular sample. We have basically, this is also, this type of question also asked in the gate. We have a standard symbols and letter used for instrumentation diagram. Basically, you have in your design 2 course, you have your PI diagram, one whole chapter. But here, from the control point of view, I just want to give you some idea. We have the instrument locally mounted. We just represent the, in your process flow sheet, we represent like this circle. Instrument at control center. So we just give this kind of symbol. Instrument giving 2 services. So we have this 2 circle cross each other. Instrument transmitting. So the cross line. Pneumatic control valve given by this symbol. Electrical operated valve by this symbol. Safety valve. Safety valve means just this symbol. Self-operated controller. So this one. Now, these are the valves, but here you can see some lines also. Just like here, we have a process connecting lines. We given like this. Orifice flow meter, right? We have this fluid pressure line by single line, electrical line, dotted line, pneumatic line. Pneumatic line means air line, gases line. This is by the this kind of cross. Capillary line, we have this kind of this type of cross in a capillary line. And there are few standard notations, just like F for flow, H for hand actuated, L for label, M for moisture, right? E for element, G for glass, I for indicating. So these are, you can say, some common standard word that is used for the control system, right? Here, these are some list of, you can say, just like you can say we have PIC. This is pressure indicating controller. PC, pressure controller. So means the symbols, standard symbols used to locate. It will give you the whole idea about the just like LA for alarm. Here you can see A for alarm, L for level. So this is level alarm, LA for level alarm. So with this combination, the different type of instruments can be named, right? Just like FI, flow indicator, FT, flow transmitter, because R for recorder. So this kind of standard symbols we can use as an instrument to represent a particular instrument in a flow sheet. So this is for instrument, this is for valves. They don't need to go for all the symbols, but at least just go through once, so at least it will be somewhere in back of your mind, so at least you have some idea. We have the different type of pumps, mostly centrifugal pumps, rotary compressor, gas blower. So this kind of centrifugal pump, yes, centrifugal pump. So this kind of arrangement you can, at least you should know. Walls, different type of walls, compressor, right? Piping, connecting shapes, just like straight line pipe, limited pipe. So these are few diagram which you can see and try to get some idea about the standard notations, right? I think I should stop at this point.